Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Yap of Exile podcast, where discussion topics, side tangents, and hot take rants are indistinguishable from one another. I am your host, WhateverMedia, also known as the Rat Lord, and today I am joined by an absolute HCSSF Giga Chad podcast extraordinaire and the man who Miso Shiru thinks is hotter than Talkative Try. It is none other than BlazeworksTV. What up, dude? How are you doing?
Dude, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, just super excited. We're like 2 days out from zero point 0.5. And I can't believe we're almost at the finish line here and ready to log in on Friday, bro. So stoked.
Dude, me too. I can't believe that I was expecting us to have a lot to talk about with the patch notes, and then I feel like we have more to talk about from the patch notes of the patch notes than the original post itself. Like all the controversial stuff that got dropped a little bit late, but so I'm really excited to talk about it. But before we dive in, I like to do a little icebreaker to get to know all of my guests, and for the audience to get to know us a little bit. So this one's a bit off the wall, but what is one fact that you can tell us about yourself that would never come up in a regular, just individual conversation unless you were asked such a specific question? An example that I have, which is different from the past couple podcasts, I have a black belt in 3 martial arts. So that wouldn't normally come up in a regular convo. So what's a fact about you?
Okay, well, I was thinking about this and I was listening to some of your previous episodes. So I was going to say sort of an easy answer, and I'll give two answers. So the easy one is, and it does actually get brought up in my own community, but a lot of people don't know this. So I'd like to share it is that I have been and am like a mural artist and graffiti artist, and I have been doing that for a long time. And so that actually was something that I've been doing for like more than half my life now that I look back on it. Like I started when I was 14 and I'm in my early 30s now. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. And then another thing that I just thought would be funny to share is that I don't know if you ever got grounded when you were a kid. I got grounded all the time for doing all sorts of dumb stuff when I was younger. I got grounded for a whole summer once, literally from like the moment that school was over until the moment that school was going back in. I got grounded, and I would love to unpack this story if you want more context.
I think that I can't move on without it. I think I need the I think I need the context on a full summer grounding, dude. That's pretty intense.
I'll keep it brief, but basically what happened, and I love this story, is so as I mentioned earlier, I used to get grounded all the time. My parents, despite me continuing to do things that would get me grounded, would still do it just to, be consistent, I guess, at a certain point. And so what happened was I got grounded for doing something I shouldn't have been doing in my room late at night out my window. I'm not going to say what it was, but it smelled in my room a little bit. It smelled a little funky in there. And anyway, so that was about a week penalty, right? That was the standard, you get caught, doing that and that's a week, right? And so basically a few days before that week was up, my buddy, messages me. We're playing video games together or something. And he says, dude, we need to go out tonight, hit up a party, and then climb the water tower in town. So I live in like a small town and go hang out up there and do some shit. And I was like, bro, I'm literally about to be ungrounded. Can we not like push the limits here? And he was very convincing. He said this party is going to be rad, and we're going to be like the first ones to climb this water tower and all this stuff. And so what happened was I snuck out. I waited until like 2 in the morning. Everyone was asleep, or so I thought, and I go to grab my bike. But before I grab it, I think, oh, but what happens if somebody comes out and sees my bike missing? That's gonna be raising red flags, right? And so I grabbed my sister's bike, not thinking that biking as far as I needed to would be terrible on a young girl's bike. And so I rode it for 5 minutes and then brought it back. And what happened was I brought it back, but I left it on the ground. And this is a key detail to the story, okay? And so I got my bike, I went out, and I had the whole night. The party was awesome. We climbed the water tower and we did some stupid shit, whatever. And so I'm, biking back to the house, and this is at like 5, 6 in the morning at this point or whatever. And my stepdad is standing in the driveway. Lord knows how long he's been standing there, but he's just standing there with his arms crossed, shaking his head. And and then on beside him on the wall or whatever, my sister's bike is propped up against there. And so I knew immediately that that's how he knew I'd snuck out, because he found the bike, I guess, where it wasn't supposed to be. And I guess he then checked and saw I wasn't there. And so that was a full summer of no video games, no friends, no electronics, and all I could do was like read books and draw. And it was an experience for sure.
That is incredible. That is incredible. What
Yeah.
here's a follow-up question. Do you think so you were able to read books and draw during that time? Do you think that that summer was like really influential in like pushing you to do more art stuff, or were you already like deep into the arts kind of thing going there?
So I did a lot of drawing and reading in my spare time. And so, I was always interested in doing that stuff. I had no other choice. So I couldn't like go see friends. I couldn't play. I played a lot of video games at this era. I was very into like StarCraft, World of Warcraft, and stuff like that at that time in my life. And I was playing a lot of that. And so it was brutal, dude. Like by the end of the summer, I was like, I can't. And usually when you're a kid, right? Summer vacation is like, that's your time. That's your time to like be outside and doing stuff and spending your free time playing World of Warcraft and shit like that. And like I did none of that shit for 2 months. It was just like it was wild, dude. It was wild.
Dude, that is crazy. I actually have not as intense, but like talking about grounding, I did get grounded my fair share. Believe it or not, Chad, I was not the perfect child, but one thing I was a very conniving child, and so my bedroom was downstairs, like in like a semi-finished basement kind of area. And so like I had my computer set up down there and all of the things in my room. And so the few times that I got in trouble enough to like get stuff taken away from me, my mom, rather than being like, oh, you cannot play games or oh, da 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 da, she goes, give me the power cord for your computer. Like, give me the cords. And I'm like, okay. And so I take the power cord and I give it to her. And then I'm like, all right. And she goes off to work and hides the power cord. And then I walk back downstairs and I open my dresser drawer that has 6 more power cords in it. And I plug that in and I go back to playing Skyrim. I'm just chilling because I had so many extras from all my little projects that I would work on. I was like, you can't. She took the Wi-Fi router at one time, and so I was like, okay. And then I just grabbed another router that I had and I plugged it in. I was like, okay, whatever.
That's
So
amazing. Dude, when you moved out, you should have just left all of your power cords and extra tech on her bed and just been like, this is what I had the whole time. That would have been so
so
funny.
she was helping me pack up a bunch of stuff when I was moving, and she did open that drawer and was like, what are all these cables for? And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. I was like, they're just old.
What are you doing? You
they're
work
just,
do you work at Radio Shack right now?
they're
Like, why do you
just,
have all this shit?
they're just old cables. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
That's funny.
That was a classic one. All right. Well, that is a good one. That's a great answer. Between that and like Rabbit talking about watches and stuff, dude, this is what the point of the question is, to learn those weird little details there. Rabbit shared a fun fact about you at the end of the podcast we did together. In like the last 2 minutes, just dropped the lore that your name is actually Blaze.
A lot of people don't know that is true. My name is actually Blaze. Yes.
That's pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. However, it does also make sense that the neighborhood kid named Blaze was the one who got grounded for a whole summer for sneaking out of his window. You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit of a troublemaker when I was a kid. If you couldn't tell already by the, graffiti artist past and constant grounding. So we like to learn the hard way, in more ways than one.
Sometimes that's the only way to learn. Speaking about learning the hard way, let's talk about how we are all about to learn how to craft the hard way, boys, because crafting has gotten pretty nuked in the past 48 hours. We got some patch note changes. So big I'll start with this. What is your, if you can think of it off the top of your head, your favorite and least favorite patch note from all of the changes that we've gotten?
That's a good question. I think there are many patch notes that I love. I don't know if there's a specific one that I can pick. I think my favorite part of the patch notes was seeing that pin and grenades were just not in the patch notes. So that made me extremely happy. It's not
I'm
about
sure.
necessarily what's in the patch notes, it's about what's not in them. And so for me, seeing those two things, also the Herald of Blood chaining not being in the patch notes was also wonderful as well. Um, but the one thing that caught my eye that we've had a lot of discussion about over the last few days is Recombinator. I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse right now when it comes to my community, but for the folks listening at home who maybe haven't heard me talk about it, I made a short about this, just kind of talking about my feelings about the Recombinator and how I thought it was really important, especially as an SSF, from an SSF perspective, as like a really great way to get like good gear. And to my surprise, I guess I was a little bit naive about this. Every single comment, basically 95% of all the comments on there, were people being like, "I've never used this thing. I've played for 500 hours. I've never even touched it." And so I kind of felt like a little bit of a lone ranger here, with regards to the Recombinator. But that was the big thing that stuck out to me immediately, was just not being able to utilize that crafting system. Because for myself, and I know many other SSF players, it was just so fundamental, to get those like really good double, modded items, like double good prefixes, especially for armor. Yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
That is a really good question. So it's pretty interesting because I had a similar, not, I wouldn't say a similar reaction to those people being like, I've never used it before, but I also am primarily an SSF player. But when I saw that, I was shocked for sure. But I wasn't super pressed about it because I didn't interact with Recom that much. The reason for that, I think, was just I really struggled to get enough even bases with good affixes that I would want to recom. Um, I think I've had like 2 recom omens in my entire time, which I spent a lot of time in HCSSF, so I die and then I'm not able to farm like super juiced content in that way. But yeah, I've had like a couple recoms actually go through, but most of the time my recoms would just fail and delete the items. And so I would be like, meh, whatever. I'm just not going to bother with it. Or I just didn't do enough expedition to really do it, to get the currency for it. But I do think that it should, I think it's strange that it's not in the game anymore. Um, because I do think that it should is still part of that. Like once you're getting up there to that high end craft, that it was necessary, for a lot of SSF players. So I'm curious how the runes and things are going to mitigate that change, and I guess that's what we're really waiting on. But it was very weird. It was weird.
Yeah, and I think your experience with the Recombinator is something that's happened quite a bit. Based on all the conversations I've been having about this thing, which is probably way too many, at this point, but a lot of folks had very similar experiences where you put in a weapon that has T1, IPD, or high roll of flat fizz, and then you try to roll that with whatever it is plus gem levels, like 5, 6, 7 gem levels, and you see the percent and it's like 0.03% chance, and you're like, I'm not going to ever use this because that's ridiculous. But the way that the Recombinator was strong was actually with armor. So with armor, it was for 2 T1 prefixes, like you would be looking at between 20 to 25%. So with the omen, it's like whatever, 40 or 50%. You're getting double T1. This was especially useful for shield wall, right? Because your primary damage source was coming from a really juiced shield. And so once you got those two modifiers, you could target prefix desecrate and echo that, and you had a really good chance of hitting triple T one. This was exceptionally useful as well for like energy shield helmets. Like you could easily get like a 500 ES helmet with subterfuge mask. You're getting 1,000 evasion with that as well. Like it was amazing. And so it feels to me like a lot of people just didn't understand how powerful of a tool it was, and they kind of just brushed it under the rug because they may have tried it a few times and didn't like it. Speaking of didn't like it, Jonathan Rogers actually talked about this in the DM podcast with Ghazi on Tavern Talk, and they just straight up said they didn't like it. And so, I talked to DM about this just to kind of put it on his radar and see, what his thoughts were, and then maybe if he was keen on asking them, and he did, which I was super happy about, and kind of just learned like what GGG's thoughts were about it. And it seems like from what they've said that the stuff they're putting into the patch, they like a lot more. So I'm excited to see what they got cooking up in there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big thing is like I trust them. So when they're like, oh, this was bad, like let's use the example of like the passive tree. Like Mark is like, that passive tree sucks. Like what we're gonna do is in a totally different universe. And it turned out to be absolutely insane in another universe. So when they're like, oh, the recombinator sucked, like what we're doing is so much better, like so confident in that. That does inspire confidence in me. It is just really weird that it wasn't. I feel like that's something that would have been more discussed than it was. But there's a lot of big changes that have kind of flown under the radar on the patch notes that most people have missed the first couple times. Another one that we got in the updated patch notes was that items can only have one crafted modifier at a time, which desecrated modifiers don't count. They did clarify that. So you can have your item, make it rare with an essence, desecrate it, and then what? Like that's one of my fundamental questions is I'm curious, and I want to see what you think about this. Do you think that all essence modifiers are going to be counted as those crafted ones? Like if I was to use like a greater abrasion essence to turn it into a rare, is that going to be my crafted modifier, or are they referring to the +5 to all skills, or +3 it is now, I guess, for perfect essence of battle? Are those the crafted modifiers, like those things that you can't really get without something like that? Or like the onslaught one, right? For me, that's like a meta crafted modifier. So that would make sense that you can only have one of those. But if I put on T3 flat fizz and that's my crafted modifier, that feels strange to me. What do you think?
So what's happening is essentially in the patch notes it says like a crafting mod is something that's guaranteed. A like crafting mod is something that provides you with a deterministic outcome. So it doesn't matter what it is. If it's a greater essence of abrasion, that's guaranteed T3 fizz. If it's a perfect essence of battle, that's a guaranteed roll of, I think it's +5. I think it might have been nerfed down to like +3 or something now. But either way, they're guaranteed. And so that's what a crafting mod. I think the wording of it was a bit weird, but I think it was essentially a classification for what a crafted mod is. And a crafting mod is something that is guaranteed or something that's deterministic. And so the same thing can be applied to the new alloys that are coming with the Runes of Aldur mechanic. They're essentially essences, but they're just something different. But they apply the same thing, which is guaranteed crafted mods. And so what scares me about this is that despite them adding a lot of new runes for new rune crafting, and some of them look incredibly powerful. Like we just saw the teaser yesterday that came out, and it had like you could add an additional suffix to an item, which is very, very strong. But at the end of the day, I think for me, we're moving towards less determinism. We're moving towards items that are probably going to be only having like two guaranteed mods, your desecration and then your crafted mod. And then a lot of it is going to come down to fracture orb and chaos rolling. And for an SSF player, that is terrible news because fractures are very hard to get, and we know now that fractures have to be unlocked via the Atlas passive tree. We don't know how much progression that's going to require to even get the chance to get them. I do think that they'll do the same thing they did in Mirage League, where you can now drop fracturing orbs just in any map instead of having to get them in only cleansed areas, which is a great change. But at the end of the day, like you're gonna have to farm a shit ton to get good chaoses and pray that you hit like the chaos spam and the fracture, and then you have to be very careful about which particular crafted mod you want to put on your item.
Yeah, I'm curious. It does make sense, but I don't know. I'm hoping that it really does, like, it turns out that this is like being a bit overblown just by like us having the lack of knowledge of what is on the other side. Um, it looks like some people in chat are saying that it could be one greater, one perfect. Because you can see the tags on POE2 or POEDB, so that's something that we might look into. But the other thing is like these runes, like you said, some of those are really really cool. I do like that some of them are for it sounded like some of them are for re-rolling. Like the way I understood it, you put the rune in, you roll for a modifier, and then you can replace it with another rune. But then some of them were like these exclusive archetype mods, like being able to do like damaging ailment ones on gloves or something like that. Those, according to the teaser, are socket bound. So as soon as you put them in, you are sacrificing a socket for that, which I think is a fair trade-off. I think that that's fine. But my question is, do we know, or do you think that we would get something like a multi-mod rune, kind of like the multi-mod craft from the crafting bench?
My immediate first reaction to that is that I don't like that because we're gatekeeping additional crafting via RNG and crafting, and it feels a bit like there's too many steps here. Like I would have been fine, and I could be totally wrong on this. Like if somebody's saying that we can use one greater and one perfect essence, that's already a massive improvement over what I think is happening, where it's like you can only have one crafted modifier on a piece of gear, and if a crafted mod means it's guaranteed, then um, it's hard for me to sort of rationalize why we could still use two essences when both of the essence outcomes would be guaranteed. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like on one hand, I would have loved if the limit was maybe reduced down to like two crafted mods instead of like, unlimited or whatever it was before, like where you could just use like four essences on an item if you wanted to. Like a martial weapon, for example. So yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see, man. Like I'm very optimistic about the changes now. I initially was a little bit disappointed because it just felt like we had gotten to such a good point. And I speak very explicitly from an SSF standpoint. We got to such a good point crafting wise, where it felt like if you played enough, you could grind up to get these currencies and really tailor these items deterministically. But from a trade standpoint, talking with folks who play in that league, it did seem like it was very, very easy to just get your currency together and then make something that could basically just trivialize the game with the current difficulty that's implemented.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense, and that's what I think. It's weird because we have this balance and we know that they don't balance stuff based off of SSF, right? They balance around trade, but also I I make the argument that it should be balanced a majority off of SSF, because if you can't play the game baseline without trade in some ways, that could be dangerous. I do think that they did need to adjust it overall. It's unfortunate that this is how drastic of a change it needed to be to get it there, but I think that it did need to happen, because if we were already almost deterministically crafting items like 5 out of 6 mods when the game isn't even out yet, then that puts a lot of strain on what they can do going into like 1.0 and beyond when it comes to crafting. So I think it makes sense. But I don't know. Like you said, we're just gonna have to see. We're just gonna have to see.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm still gonna, figure everything out, and I look forward to like discovering what like the powerful strategies are gonna be and how to make good items in SSF. I really do think though that the changes that were made were to limit the amount of like immediate power that players have or that characters will have in the game, so that we don't accelerate so quickly from tier 1 to tier 15s. Because if you know what you're doing, it was no secret that you could spec into essences and get a really solid piece of gear within the first like couple days of playing in the end game, and then there's not really much else to progress unless you're really looking to min max, or in 0.4's case push temple and whatnot. But so I do think that overall it's it's probably a good decision. It's just sad because as a SSF player, the reward for actually playing a lot felt like you could almost guarantee that you were going to get something in return, and now it feels like we're going to have to play a lot in order to attempt to do something, and it's going to feel really bad when you miss the fracture or when you go through all of your chaos orbs and you have to just go back and farm again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the way that they would view it is that we kind of accepted that challenge going SSF, but
For sure.
and like I agree, I am playing SSF to draw it out longer, but not like I'm only going to be able to play one character for the 6-month league long because I can't get good gear, because then you just quit, right? You just get frustrated. So, and we'll have to see when it comes to drop rates and things like that. Another interesting change is that they've just made divines more common due to temple stuff, which I think is hilarious because I I said it multiple times. I was worried that we were going to leave 0.4 and go into 0.5, and regardless of how good everything is, people were going to go, "Where's the loot? I'm not getting any loot," because they fried their dopamine receptors with the temple. And then even GGG was like, "Yeah, we're just going to make divines more common," to kind of counter for that. Do you think that do you think that that's going to be a good long-term change for the health of the game when it comes to like, because now we're definitely going to need more divine syncs and things like that, but even for the trade players, like how it's going to affect the market? What do you think about that?
I think that they definitely had to tread cautiously here because of the scaling and the amount of tinks that people got used to per hour in the temple, and so it makes sense the way that they would increase divine orbs, right? And I'm really indifferent. Like I think that for me, my perspective on this is kind of like I use divine orbs for a completely different purpose. Like when I was um, trying to get a lot of XP, I would just re-roll all my tablets to get like the highest percentage of XP on them, and that's what I would use divine orbs for. And so I hope that from a trade perspective, as you mentioned, there's a lot of additional like divine sinks to complement the additional amount of divines that people are going to have, or we're just going to see, people farming raw currency a lot, and we're probably going to see a lot of items that are going to be really expensive, like a divine orb wise, because there's just going to be so many of them in play at the moment, and so that's just going to result in people seeing opening up trade and seeing items for whatever 500, 1,000. I don't really know what an expensive item goes for these days, but yeah, so those are always a little bit jarring, especially for new players. I feel like when you go to buy something and the price difference goes from like, a couple divines on day one to, down the road, whatever, 1,000 divines or something. So can be a little bit problematic there.
Yeah, I'm curious if the market is going to shift towards like, since they are making greater and perfect currency more rare, if we're going to see like almost using that tiering system to where it is like chaos, greater chaos, and perfect chaos, or like your forms of currency rather than it jumping to a divine orb now. That's something that I could see the market adapting to. But who knows? We're not trade players, guys. We are SSF Andes for the most part when it comes to PoE2. So, speaking of that, we haven't talked about what league we're starting in. Obviously, it's very clear that we're SSF players. This league, go around, for those not aware, are you going softcore, hardcore? You're normally the HCSSF Andy. I'm normally right there with you, dude.
So after I watched the initial league launch, or like the content reveal, I should say, it made me rethink my whole like perspective on PoE2. And I haven't actually done that for a while. And so, as you mentioned, played a lot of HCSSF since 0.1. I started in Trade League though, and the reason why I didn't like Trade League was just because of the website. I didn't enjoy like the moment to moment interactions and sort of the friction that came with the infamous grinding your games trade website, the messaging people not getting back to you or getting spammed for stuff, and it was just very clunky. And so after watching the content reveal and having experienced Trade League much more in depthly in the Mirage League recently, I actually was very, very close to thinking about playing hardcore trade. I had such a blast using async. I think it's such a good addition to the game. Um, But that being said, I really enjoy the prolonging of progression, and so I think SSF is the choice that I made. And I'm going to be league starting HCSSF, but I've decided to play onwards with that character after I die instead of going back to the beach, just because there's so much new stuff to learn and explore and discover. And I felt myself like um, already getting FOMO if I had like just got to maps and then died to something that I didn't know about. And while I'm re-leveling, everybody else is in maps and doing pinnacles and crafting new gear and stuff like that. And so I thought to myself, why grief myself on this league when I can just learn everything there is to know and then play Timmy's league on hardcore, or then go into 1.0 and play hardcore and stuff like that. And so I still love it. I still hold hardcore really dearly to me, but I'm going to be mainly playing softcore SSF this league.
Yeah, same. And that's the thing. I was thinking about it, and I did the same lastly because 0.3 and 0.3 I exclusively played hardcore. I did not play softcore at all. And then 0.4 launching when it did during the holidays and things, I was like, oh, I don't really have time to be spending all my time in campaign if I die a lot. So I'm gonna just start softcore, softcore SSF, and I'm doing the same this time. But not because I don't have the time. I took 10 days off of work. I'm ready to blast, brother. But I don't want to spend half of that time of my endgame patch league start not in the end game because I died to something stupid. And so I want to learn the bosses. I want to learn all of the new things, experience all the new things, and then re-roll hardcore. Same thing, probably do like hardcore when it comes to Timmy's. I think a big thing that pulled me towards hardcore in the first place with PoE 2, and kind of how I feel, because in PoE 1 I definitely lean towards softcore. But one, I think PoE 1 is more rippy, but in PoE 2 I feel like that was kind of our way to like prolong the game even more because there wasn't that much in-game content. And so we were taking our time progressing through the map tiers and doing all the things rather than just like blasting to T15s and going, there's nothing to do. And that was kind of our way of doing that. I don't feel like that's going to be necessary anymore. Maybe in 3 months I'll feel differently because I will have done all the content and been like, now I need to do hardcore, otherwise I'm gonna get bored. But we're also gonna potentially have like economy resets and stuff this league, so it'll be really interesting for that. So we're both softcore Andes this league, dude. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think for me and for you as well, it was just about having as much fun as possible. And I love PoE 2. I have so much fun playing it. And it just came down to the fact where I was like, I want to play this game so much. And softcore trade actually makes me like not able to do that because I'm able to just like, get to a certain point in my progression and feel like there's not really anything else to do. And so I was super happy to find SSF because it allowed me to just have fun for longer. And hardcore even extended that further, obviously, with the re-rolling and making new characters and stuff. So, yeah, I think fun was always just like the biggest priority for me. And I have so much fun playing the game. And so those modes just allowed me to do that the most.
Yeah, absolutely agree. With all that said, talking about new content, we're going into this endgame patch. So hopefully on day one, you and I both will make it through the campaign into maps. I say that every time, and I almost never enter maps on Friday. But I'm ready this time, chat. I'm ready. Trust. But let's say we're gonna make it there. We arrive in maps. We open our atlas for the first time. Everything is like 5 maps away. First tower is like 3 maps away. Every league mechanic is like 5 to 7 maps away in different directions. What direction are you going first?
I'm going right to the tower. I'm popping that tower and I'm opening up that fortress and I'm going to go right in there and get all of my Atlas passive points. That's the way I'm going to go. I think that's the way that most people are probably going to go. What I've heard is that when you complete the fortress and you complete your Atlas passive points, you'll probably be in T15s by that point. You'll be like around like the level 90 area. And then you can kind of just choose to do whatever next quest line you want to. And then you'll have access to all of the additional passive points that juice your maps and give you additional league content and alter that league content. And so after that, I was actually going to go right into Expedition. Being like the Runes of Aldur, the like reworked Expedition, I'm really excited to see what that has to offer, and I'm especially excited to see what the crafting options are. And so that's kind of my plan of action, and then maybe pick up, if I can, a couple Abyss tablets to do alongside with the Expedition, because Abyss is just so damn good for crafting early game and getting that extra desecrated modifier. So yeah, I think that's my strat: Fortress, Atlas passive points, and then Expedition and Abyss. What about you?
I'm definitely going to the fortress first. The real question for me, I don't know if I want to take that route where I'm going to like clear each of those special maps individually, or if I'm going to try to take that route that I like kill the Arbiter of Divinity and it just like clears all those maps in that section, because that it would definitely be the fastest way to get to doing other content as well and experiencing it. But they said that these maps in there are like pretty juiced apps. Like they almost all have those like special nodes that we'll find out in the Infinite Atlas. Like every mob is in a strong box, or like those cool things, and getting to experience those. So that's one of the things that I'm most torn on, is I'm like, how quickly do I want to progress through the fortress? But I think other mechanics, I agree with you. Expedition is like high up there. I want to be out on the ocean, dude. I want to see what kind of crazy runes and stuff we can get. Of the other league mechanics, I really, really want to see what kind of crazy crafting stuff I can do with Breach and do for like amulets and stuff like that. Those amulets with like the spirit instills look crazy to me, and it's almost always that there's like two affixes on your amulet that aren't that great anyway, if you're me, because I get really bad luck, I guess. But so like the idea of having an amulet that sacrifices a prefix and a suffix in exchange for like eternal rage for free on my build, easy trade-off. So that's probably where I would be going for first. But I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. There's so much to do. I want to do it all at the same time.
Yeah, bringing up the unique map, or like the interesting maps that are in the fortress. I think we're gonna have access to those outside of the fortress as well. I think we're either gonna be able to like spec into those on the Atlas Passageway, or just see those as like random occurrences in the like Infinite Atlas as well. But they are incredibly good for our progression, right? Because you find one of those maps that's like every rare monster pack is in an essence, and like that's just so many potentially good like crafting materials that you can use just from one map, right? And so yeah, I'm gonna definitely take my time through that and not necessarily rush. I don't know if you clear a zone of them from doing the Arbiter of Divinity. I think there actually are like other pinnacles in the fortress as well. I could be completely wrong on this. I think the Arbiter of Divinity is like kind of the end of the fortress. I don't know. Maybe you guys can correct me in the comments, but I think there are other bosses that we kill that can like complete a section. And so, yeah, I'm curious. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think that might be how it works.
Yeah, it was something like, I know the Arbiter of Ash is like in the fortress, and that is the first thing, and that there are other fortress bosses. But I think that killing those other bosses is how you get the fragments to fight the Arbiter of Divinity. Because I know that in the one of the million videos that they've released, they said once you kill the Arbiter of Divinity 4 times is when like all of the points are unlocked. So I don't know if that's just like specifically some points are tied behind that boss, or like that's literally how you like fast track the fortress. But I'm excited to see what it does. I'm excited to see what all of the multi-choice nodes are, because I hope that they're crazy, because otherwise it will feel kind of stagnant with us all like taking the whole tree. So I'm hoping that there's a lot of those, and it's not just like, oh, there's 10 out of the 309 nodes or whatever it is on the tree. But talking about that in-game stuff and specialization, Atlas masteries, Atlas, Masters, Atlas Passive, whatever you want to call them. They are giving us 3 different trees to kind of choose from. Each one has 12 nodes. We've seen 4 nodes from each one, it looks like. We've seen 0 of like Doriani's final row. So I'm curious what a lot of that stuff is going to be. It sounded like from some of the interviews that it was going to be a lot of stuff to do with like biomes. They specifically mentioned in the DM Ghazi interview that Doriani can just terraform a biome from one into another. It sounded like we didn't really have to, or we didn't get to choose what biome it terraforms into, so it's not like a deterministic thing 100%. But yeah, what do you think about that system in comparison to like having 3 separate trees that we have to swap between, like you do in like the PoE1 endgame?
It's definitely an interesting choice. I think that PoE1 having 3 multiple trees complements the amount of league content that's in PoE1. So there's very different things that you can do depending on which type of content you want to farm. Right now, it's still like we have, our classic 4 expedition, breach, ritual, delirium, and then abyss and the Val Temple. And now I guess the runes of Aldur as well. So there is quite a bit. But in comparison to PoE1, I feel like it's not really necessary yet to have multiple Atlas trees. And I'm somewhat of a completionist, dude. Like when it comes to just being a gamer in general, like I like getting all the things. Whenever I play like an open world game, I like doing all the side quests and I like doing all the, the exploration stuff. And so for me personally, it just kind of scratches that itch in my brain where I'm like, oh, I can like go through and actually like check this off and have it done. And I imagine it's probably going to be part of the challenges in the challenge league where like, get all of your Atlas passive points, right? And so it's going to feel like good to do that just on like a kind of a game like feel level. And I do really like the introduction of masteries, not only in the Atlas Passive tree, but the Atlas Masters too. Like the Doriani thing, which they kind of just what Jonathan just kind of like casually dropped while sipping his like glass of red wine was a massive addition that we didn't know about. It's the first time that we've ever had agency over the Infinite Atlas, like being able to change it. And it's a step in the right direction for sure. It just makes me think about like what other sort of agencies are we going to have in the future. But it's a big, big addition. There's so many times where like you'd love to just maybe swap over a couple of those shitty maps, and so this is going to be a perfect time now that you can just change it. We don't have any control of what it's going to be, but maybe down the road, there will be more of an incentive to farm certain biomes. I don't know if we have any additional incentives or like rewards for biomes, but it could definitely complement that really well.
Yeah, I'm sure that based off of some of the things that we've seen on like the Atlas Masters that we have so far, so like the 20% chance to like double precursor tablet effect and stuff like that, those are nodes that we already have on the existing Atlas passive tree. So I'm sure that like one of them is like local knowledge. So like it will give you more of something versus another thing depending on which biome you choose. It'll be interesting on the terraforming because if we can terraform a biome to a random biome, say I'm about to walk into like a Val city, I'm like, oh my god, I do not want to do Molten Vault over and over again. And I terraform it and it terraforms into a different biome, but the map that I'm going to have to go through also isn't one that I like from that biome. I can then also corrupt my tablet and then use that corrupted tablet, and it will randomize the map again with the other Doriani passive. So it's interesting. Like there's potentially like 2 rerolls of a layout. So we're moving in the right direction. I like that more than being able to just run the same map over and over and over again. I think there are some benefits to that, but also some cons. But yeah, I think overall it's going to be really cool. If you remember them, what is the node that you are like most excited to mess with
On the
on the
masteries,
masters? Yeah, that we've seen.
I mean, there's a lot of really good ones, dude. Like even the the boss one that drops an additional unique item is just wonderful. I mean, boss completion is or boss killing is the way that we complete maps, right? And so we're going to be getting a lot of additional unique items, which is great if you're trying to target like a specific thing and maybe you don't want to do ritual. And so I'm definitely going to do that because there's are some unique items that I need for my build, and it's just going to be nice to kind of like passively fill up the unique item bank. And who knows, you could get like a headhunter from that, right? Like it's just possible that that could happen. So that one I'm really excited to see because I felt like we didn't really have a lot of ways to target farm uniques unless we were doing like juiced Val Temple. So it's cool to see that, and as well as the ritual rework as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. The ritual rework is going to be absolutely massive for SSF, especially with not only the uniques, but if the omens that are in there are actually like good ones and not just like let's go gambling omens, So we'll see what happens with that. Um, um, the big one that I'm excited for, because we also have to spec into it on the Atlas tree for SSF, is the 50% increased chance to find exceptional items. I think is going to be huge. So being able to spec into that for SSF, especially with how much runes are going to matter, the idea of dropping bases with an additional rune socket, just baseline, is going to be a huge power spike over what it was before. Especially like some of those runes we were seeing, you can convert a rune socket to a jewel socket for your gear. Like that stuff is crazy. Get that extra one and then Valet. Can what kind of crazy stuff can we put in there? So that one's probably the one I'm most excited for.
I think
But
that one's going to have some massive trade league implications as well. It really feels like if exceptional bases weren't the meta for crafting and having good gear, there's certainly going to be the meta now. As you mentioned, like the importance of an additional socket or even more sockets when it comes to like, Val, like corrupting an item and stuff like that. Those are going to be like the mirror tier items, right? Like, and so yeah, on one hand, it's cool. I think on the other hand, it's like, I don't like having to be, forced into doing anything. And I felt like as an SSF player, exceptional items were like a great bonus to have when you found one. But it wasn't like something that I was like actively searching for all the time. I guess it kind of just depends on what league you're playing. Like for Trade League, people are going to make a ton of money just farming exceptional bases as they already did in the past. So we're going to be seeing a lot of people just doing like low rarity, negative rarity, and hitting those nodes and making bank.
yeah, for sure. I'm curious how I think that it's going to fill in and it's going to feel a bit better because you're right. I agree with you. I didn't seek out exceptional bases previously, but the idea of seeking them out now, to me, I'm not like, oh, a non-exceptional base is trash or whatever, because crafting is going to be a lot harder. Not having a recom and like a lot of the guaranteed essence stuff. So I think that it's kind of giving another step in that progression. So you're like, okay, I have my like GG endgame base bow. And now that I'm like crushing content with that, my next step is that I need to get an exceptional version of this so that I can roll and put a seventh affix on it, right? So like those types of things, like super min maxing, I think that that's going to feel really good. It is going to prolong the gearing process, but I don't think it's going to feel bad to do it that way. It'll give you something to look forward to.
Totally. I just think that if we're crafting via sockets, which is kind of the theme around this league, we may discover crafting recipes or strategies, I should say, that require an additional socket in order to complete a specific craft. And so if you need that for your build and your build is not going to be useless without it, but it's going to be significantly improved with it, it's going to be rough to maybe get that initial base and then or whatever, because it's going to take a minute to get that, right?
Yeah, I'm curious with that will we be able to do that? Because I know if you socket in, so the example they gave was like socketing in that rune into the gloves for the damaging ailments affixes, and then like chaos orbing to get multiple of the mods. But can you socket, say you get lucky and you have 2 socket gloves, and then you're planning to like valet to get a 3rd socket? can you use those first two sockets as like two different special crafting things, or can it only be one special crafting rune socketed into a piece of gear? That's
That's a
one question I don't think we have the answer to that.
That's a great question. I was just thinking about that when we spoke about exceptional bases. Like, if you find a socket pair of gloves and you put on like the chronomancy rune, and as well as I believe there was one for like ranged abilities. I can't remember what the wording was. Could you like roll both of those at the same time and potentially open up a like chaos, or a chaos pool of like, both of those mod pools as well. So yeah, I think there's going to be some pretty crazy crafting strategies that people find, especially with exceptional bases. And yeah, we'll just see where items end up looking after people have sort of like played around with it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Um, for the crafting side of things, moving into how we're going to use that. I asked you what league you were going to be starting in. I didn't ask you about your league starter. What are you thinking about league starting this time around?
Yeah, so we're going with tactician, going with nades at the beginning. Had such a great like successful league start with that in 0.4. I got to my highest level, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I was thinking about it. So I don't know if this is like a thing that you experience, but for me, I was really excited to play with the Spirit Walker, and especially wanted to play with Twisters because I'd never tried Twisters before. Really, I did it once. I was also on the Tactician. Happens to be my favorite ascendancy right now, and so I kind of wanted to try a bunch of different stuff on it. Um, but then they released that awesome video about the Spirit Walker, and they gave an overview, and then they showcased those builds that GGG had made, and then all of a sudden you go on YouTube and it's just like everyone's talking about making Twister builds and playing the Spirit Walker and stuff. And a part of me felt sad about that because it felt like I was just going to be another person playing Twisters. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like all the power in the world to play a strong, like what's going to be probably meta build. I did that in Mirage League with KF Totems and it was super fun. But a part of me was like, like I just didn't really want to play what everyone's going to play right off the get go. And so I thought to myself, what can I do? And I realized that I ended up doing that bleed crit siege cascade build when I hit level 99 and then died. And so I wanted to finish that chapter off, give that guy a new chance at life, and actually push the build to level 100 and also like go further with the min maxing than I did on that one. And so that kind of has this like kind of redemption arc narrative to the build that I'm starting with as well, which is fun.
That's sick, dude. I'm excited to see you be able to take that all the way. Hopefully, when we re-roll hardcore, it's not another die at 99 situation.
Yeah.
Let's avoid that at all possible.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a strong starter. The fact I was telling chat earlier, I really am worried that we're gonna finish this pod and we're gonna get some updated patch notes and they're gonna be like grenades. But at the same time, the fact that they haven't touched it now is kind of crazy to me. Uh Grenades untouched, twisters untouched, which I didn't expect them to nerf twisters showcasing it as much as they did. But then you have some stuff that like was meta, but not nearly as strong as a lot of other things. Poison got gutted. I expected that to happen. Rest in peace, me, a big ailments enjoyer. But there just wasn't nearly as much balance shifting as I thought that there would be. So I'm curious what that mid league reset will look like for stuff like that. I can already tell you're gonna really be excited about those new grenade launcher bases, right?
I'm so excited about the grenade launchers, dude. Like when I saw Redemption, I was like, no freaking way. And I felt like, if they had done a teaser for Redemption and then nerfed grenades, it kind of would just be like a kick in the dick a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it got people so excited to play with this grenade launcher, but then grenades are like, dead. So why would you want to? And the beautiful thing about the new cannon base is that it kind of solves this sort of like gearing issue that grenades have. So without going into too much detail, essentially you want to be using like a specific like crossbow base that gives you additional grenade projectiles. But the gap at the end game is between your level 59 base and your level 79 base. And so that can feel really bad, especially when you're getting into like tier 15s with an item from the interludes. And so getting that grenade launcher base, that Charthan cannon or whatever it's called, actually kind of closes that gap a little bit by like 6 levels. And so that can be a huge difference, especially if we're getting, what I'm really excited about is the potential ability to spec into 100% second activation time for grenades. So if my math is correct, we should be able to get damn near close to guaranteeing our grenades exploding a second time, which is just like you're doing double damage essentially, which is really, really good.
Damn. I
Yeah.
was I was not aware that it was getting to be that crazy. Oof. And you
So
get
there's a
that.
rune that you can get that's 10% additional chance to activate. So we can get whatever it is, 3 of those if you have like a a triple socket crossbow, maybe even 4 if you get a insane exceptional base and Val corrupted for a 4th socket or something like that. And then there's Atlas passive tree, or sorry, there's a passive tree node that gives you an additional 15%. And then we don't know if that grenade launcher has a suffix roll that could be additional chance or a prefix roll for additional chance for activation. So we're going to get damn near close. We might even be able to get there if the grenade launcher has like pretty interesting grenade specific modifiers, which they said they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, do those like 10% second activation runes, are those limit to 1? Do we
That's a good
know that?
question. I should look at the video again. I know they showcased one of them, and I kind of, as I watch these things, I pause it with chat and I sort of read them out loud and stuff like that. And so nothing comes to my head about the limit of 1. I do think that'd be kind of a thing that they would do, but I'd have to go back and take a look at that just to double check.
Yeah. Even if they did, though, just that 1 rune and the 1 Atlas tree passive, that is a 1 in 4 chance for your grenades to go off a second time.
And there's payload support, which gives you an additional 50% chance to activate a second time as well.
Okay, so well, that puts you said 50%?
Yes.
So that puts you at 75%. And then how many projectiles are we launching?
We're launching minimum 3, probably 4, maybe at that point. Yeah.
So it's basically, it would be a mathematical anomaly for at least one of your grenades to not go off a second time.
But we want all of them to go off a second time.
And I get it, dude. I get it.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I love that. And with like pen and stuff, dude, tactician is so strong, and people they just don't get it. They just don't get it.
It's a sleeper ascendancy, man. I'm telling you, it's a sleeper ascendancy. It's wonderful. We don't talk about pin though. Pin, that's mouth shut on that one.
It's like Fight Club. Can't talk about
it. Don't talk about it, dude.
What we can talk about is when it comes to the mercenary is we also have changes to the Gemling Legionnaire. Interesting quality changes there is the main thing. I was really disappointed because I was so ready. Like I was 90% going into this stream where before this pod, I was kind of thinking through a league starter of starting a Gemling. And then I was rewatching the video and I saw to get to the additional quality node, you have to take that like skill gem ward shield thing that I'm gonna be honest, I hope I'm proven wrong. That looks like it is gonna scale like ass. Like it does not. I see the vision of the defenses, but it's like to gain all of the charges or something. It's like I can't remember what it was, like 18 seconds or something like that, and then you lose them if you get hit. So I'm like, okay, so it's a 1 hit per 18 seconds molten shell for a whole ascendancy that I have to take. Oh, that put me off. I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that's really good, and I'm hoping that the additional quality on some of these gems is just bananas, and we can do some really cool builds.
You know what's crazy is that we also are getting additional quality and quality modifiers on the Kalgurin skills as well, which is something that we don't know what's going to happen with those. Like if they're going to be additive to builds, or if you're going to if people are going to come up with ways to just get a shit ton of runic ward and then make full builds out of the Kalgurian skills. But that's also, I mean, theoretically going to apply to the Gemling's quality, right? And so, yeah, it's probably the most exciting ascendancy I would say for me. And if I get bored of the tactician, I can always just swap over to that and make it a completely different build.
Yeah, and we'll see. The quality on Siege Cascade could be absolutely insane, and you don't even need
Yeah.
Pin, which
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about. We don't talk about Pin, but you may not even need it. So that's the real question. Yeah, I'm kind of experiencing the same thing that you experience with Twisters. Is I'm thinking that I'm going to end up playing like Ice Shot Snipe.
Mhm.
Just I didn't get to play Ice Shot as a main skill. And I know a bunch of people are going to be playing it, but that archetype just looks so fun to me, to be able to play that first character. I definitely want to do some martial arts, like crazy bell shenanigans, like they've shown off like that. In the martial artist preview, when they show them doing like 10 million DPS to Zesht in like 2 seconds, placing those
Yeah.
bells, I was like, okay, guys, like that's kind of crazy to be showing off.
Can we talk about that for a second? So
Yeah,
when PoE was initially like, it's just funny how the tables have turned a little bit. Where it's like when PoE was initially showcased, Mark was fighting Blackjaw for like 15 minutes. Like that was like, and then he died. And now we've gotten full circle where GGG is showing us builds to play that are one tapping Zesht. Like in this game that was supposed to be like meaningful combat. I know it's a meme. I'm sorry. It's just I find it very funny to when I watched that. I was like, after I did my retrospective video, I watched all of the press conferences or whatever for the game, and just watching how Mark was fighting the monkey in Act 3, and it took him like 10 minutes to kill him, like dodge rolling and all this shit. And now we're just one tapping session. That's what they want us to do. It's just an interesting turn of events, don't you think?
it is really interesting, but they also have said like they have their vision. Talking about memes, they have the vision, but they ultimately said if the players don't like it, we'll change it. And so I'm happy that they stick to their guns on a lot of things, but take our feedback seriously, to where it would change. Because I'll be honest, I don't want to fight Silver Fist for 15 minutes. If I
I
want,
have with Mace Strike. It was exhilarating.
yeah. Well, if you want to do it now, all you got to do is spec into concoctions. I promise. But
There it is. Yeah,
there, I got to mention it at least once. But
for sure.
it is interesting how they've kind of flipped on that. But I am very happy with how it's going, because they also have said like eventually you're going to get to that stage. Like that's the point of an ARPG power fantasy, is to become that like godlike character who just one shots everything. But I think they wanted to prolong how long that takes. And even with some of the changes that we're getting now, I don't think the average player is going to get to that point before they drop off. I think it's going to take a lot longer, overall. And I could be proven wrong. It could be day 2 and we're like one-shotting Arbiter of Divinity 6 party or something like that. But who knows at this point?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I definitely feel that there's enough stuff now, that to get to that power curve, to get to that point that I am one-shotting Zesht, that I'm gonna end up taking my first character to level 100 this league.
Nice.
I think that is it's going to take that long to like really perfect the build that we want, because we're thinking, dude, we haven't even talked about jewels, all the crazy delirium jewel stuff. Like there's so much min maxing that can happen now. I'm curious how much is going to be necessary. I hope it's hard to. I hope this content is hard. I hope farming pinnacles is hard. But I don't know. What do you think about like the amount of min maxing that's going to be added in this patch?
I will say to your point, I think that you're going to be one-shotting Zesht well before you hit level 100, because that's a serious grind. Like you know how you when you hit level 98, I think you're like halfway to level 100. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah, like you'll be destroying bosses way before then. It's good. I think what they've done here is it feels like they haven't increased the difficulty of the bosses in terms of like their HP, but they've just reduced the amount of power that we can get. Um, and I think that it's going to have to be something that I test out and see how it feels. I feel like we've been conditioned over the course of the last like year and a bit to feel stronger overall with regards to difficulty, but also with regards to crafting power. And so having that taken away may feel like how I felt closer towards PoE or PoE 2's release, and not in a bad way. Like I really was drawn to the difficulty of the game originally and struggling a little bit more. And that's what kind of made me actually fall in love with the game. I know I'm kind of maybe an outlier about that because a lot of people didn't enjoy the item scarcity or the lack of crafting options or the movement speed, like how slow we were. But I think all of those things for me really stuck out as something that like made it challenging. And I'm a fan of challenge. So I say bring it on, and let's see how challenging it can get and how long it's going to take us to beat those challenges.
Absolutely. Literally talking about beating challenges because we're getting challenges in this league. We're only getting 8 of them, not the 40 that are in PoE 1, but I will take it. I'll take it. I love the idea of a challenge league. That challenge armor is sick as hell. I want everybody, if you're watching at home, to give a round of applause to GGG for making that armor set absolutely badass and making it, honestly, in my opinion, better than both of the supporter pack armors this time around. Those armors are great. They are good. I have both of them, but that I want that challenge armor like really bad. But to complete it, you got to do the pinnacles. You got to do at least, I think it was 3 of the pinnacles. You have to do Ritual, Delirium, and Abyss, I think are the ones they showed off for the challenge stuff. So that's super exciting. What do you think about the challenges as they are being presented in this like more basic form? Do you think that this will like really provide a lot to prolonging that end game for the average player?
I'm such a big fan of challenges, dude. I love the idea of like earning in-game cosmetics from completing like things in game. It's something that kind of goes back to like my days of like playing WoW and shit like that, where like you could, if you did a raid enough times, you could get like a crazy item that like no one had. And it kind of feels like that, where like if you play the game enough, you can achieve something. Especially with it being the first challenge league, how cool is it going to be that we're going to have armor maybe years down the road that like only a very small a portion of the player base has because we were around for the time of the first challenge league, right? Yeah, I love the way they do it in PoE 1. This league in PoE 1 was the first time I ever did 36 out of 40 challenges, and so I think it's fantastic. And it was something that I was not expecting for them. Like when I was watching the content reveal and they dropped that, I was like, no friggin' way. I thought that was going to be like the 1.0 thing. Maybe they complement that with the Challenge League, but super happy that we have it in 0.5.
Yeah, I agree. And the maps or the challenges aren't too crazy. I think that anybody with a decent decent amount of time that they can put into the league can get all of them done. Because other than the pinnacles, it's like run, was it 200 maps, 2000 maps, something like that. I think it was like 200. I think 2000 is a lot. But like identify 50 uniques, do side bosses in the campaign, like make sure you do all the side bosses. So I think that that's really good. I think that's great. With that, talking about the pinnacles that we have to kill and kind of bouncing back a little bit, kind of in between the past 2 topics. How do you feel now that you have experienced PoE 1's endgame proper? So you played a few of the PoE 1 leagues, but Mirage League was the first one that you like really center home there, doing the 36 out of 40 and stuff. How do you feel about where we are, not necessarily where we're about to be with 0.5, but where we are looking at from a 0.4 landscape with like Zesht and Arbiter and stuff, with Pinnacles versus PoE 1 when it comes to Pinnacle bosses? Because it's kind of crazy, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Pinnacle bosses in PoE 1 just are so much better than PoE 2, and it's not even close. I think that the boss designs are really cool in PoE 2, but when it comes down to like the fights and their mechanics and stuff like that, PoE 1s are just way more challenging. Like Uber bosses in PoE 1 are fucking hard, man. Like watching Ben do that shit on the gauntlet is like, if you don't know how hard that is, and watching him do his wizardry, it's insane. And so yeah, I really look forward to seeing what the Arbiter Divinity looks like. But I think that PoE 2 just has a different baseline for difficulty across everything, and especially with regards to Pinnacle bosses and bosses in general. That being said, though, we don't necessarily know how the fights are going to go. I remember Everseen talking about how most of these new Pinnacles are also kind of things from PoE 1, if I'm not mistaken. I think the spider from Expedition looks really interesting, and I'm not entirely sure how that one's going to play out. So I'm excited to see that maybe they push, the difficulty and mechanics a bit more. I know some people find the Arbiter of Ash fight not enjoyable because you have to really lock in, and like, if you don't, then you die because you've died of mechanics and not just because your character doesn't do enough damage necessarily. But I think those things are fun. For me anyway, there's very few moments when I'm playing the game now where I have to like sit up in my chair and like actually like focus. And it's cool. I think that's what Pinnacle bosses should be. They should be those sit up in your chair moment and be like, yo, I need to lock in for this. So looking forward to seeing what they got in 0.5 with regards to that.
Yeah, me too. The thing that I'm most curious about is how these bosses are going to scale when it comes to, not necessarily gearing. I guess this is a better way to phrase the question. How, when it comes to looking at Pinnacles going forward, would you want to see it more as a like gearing check, or would you want to see a lot more of these like skill check unskippable mechanics? Like you have, obviously you can DPS through a bunch of things, but like Arbiter hallways, PoE one, the Maven memory game is a classic one. Would you want to see more content like that in these Pinnacle fights, or would you want it to be more of a DPS check, more something in the middle? What do you think?
Hmm. I like those things, but I don't think it needs to be necessarily one or the other. Like I think that Zesh is a perfect example of like he has good mechanics. He gets memed on as like a target dummy now, but I remember fighting him in 0.1 and thinking, wow, this is a really fun and greatly designed boss fight where like, he has two phases, and after you enter phase 2, all the fists come down and becomes a lot more difficult to actually do damage to him because mechanics are overlapping and stuff. So Mm, I don't know if I have an answer for like one or the other. I think it needs to be a good mix of both. Like I think there's going to be very rarely an occasion where having higher DPS on a boss fight is a bad thing, right? Like you go in there and you have more damage, you kill boss quicker, you get loot, you move on. Um, and I don't like these like invulnerability phases that PoE 1 bosses have. So I like that when bosses are unable to be damaged, we have the ability to interact with mechanics like with arbiters, balls, or hallways and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think it's got to be a mixture of both.
Yeah, I agree, dude. That's, I think that's the big thing for me is the like immunity phases that feel bad, because I like the mechanics. Like I love the Maven memory game in PoE 1. I think it is fantastic. It is very interesting. You do have to stop and pay attention, but it is also a mechanic that you can master. There are certain things, I forget exactly what it is, but it's like if it is, I forget what the orientation is, but it's like if it is in a certain square or a certain quadrant, it cannot go to the bottom left. So like when you know that, it automatically takes your like decision down from 1 and 4 to 1 and 3. And so that automatically makes the memory game a lot easier. And PoE 1 veterans, I am not one of those, so please don't, like, I probably butchered that. I have 600 hours, just forgive me. But I really like that fight, and I would love to see more of that in PoE 2. The thing that I don't love is the immunity phases, which I do understand for some mechanics, but also the one-shots are brutal right now. Specifically, not in PoE 2 with like Zesh and stuff, but Arbiter of Ash, especially in hardcore, with like rare tablets being tied behind it and stuff. And it's okay, you can have this crazy build with crazy defenses, and you are absolutely nuking the Arbiter, but you're going to have to do the ball phase. And then he's going to do the ball up in the air, and he's going to bring it down, and then you don't know if you need to dodge in or dodge out for the slam thing. And then if you mess up that like 0.1 second dodge roll there, you can just lose your character if you're in hardcore. I think that kind
It's
of
a skill
stuff,
issue, though. It's a skill issue.
yeah, it is a skill
it's
issue.
a skill issue, man. That's it.
It is a skill issue. I think that I do think that there should be content like that in the game. I think that something as important to the end game as rare tablets should not necessarily be tied behind a mechanic like that. I think it can be tied behind Arbiter, and I think Arbiter hallways are fine. I think the baseball mechanic is fine. It's that weird in between thing where you have to like dodge in and out of the circle there. I think that the timing on that is just really janky, especially for people who are like high latency gamers. It just is kind of meh.
I was just doing Arbiter today, and I mean, it does take a little bit of practice. I mean, to be fair, if you're playing on Trade League and you get to Arbiter of Ash, you have unlimited attempts now, so you can just do him for as long as you want until you master every mechanic. That being said, if you're playing and doing him on hardcore and you don't know the mechanic, you're gonna die, like 100%. Like you don't know that perfect timing window, it's gonna be an instant death. And so I get what you're saying, right? Where it's like, in order to unlock these incredibly rare tablets, or these incredibly important rare tablets, you are going to have enough skill to know the mechanics of this boss fight to do it. Arbiter of Ash is the pinnacle boss of the game right now, so it should not be a handout in my opinion, and I would rather have him more challenging than a cakewalk. And if challenging means that we can't trivialize him with DPS because we have to engage with some mechanics from time to time, I think that that's an okay thing. I think that might even be a good thing in my opinion. And I think I stand by that decision that they've made where like, this is something that you can not only trivialize by playing the game for a long time, but also by like experiencing the boss and actually learning his fights. It kind of reminds me of like Souls games. I've just recently dipped my feet rather, not dunked, but dipped into Elden Ring. And yeah, like you learn these patterns, you learn these boss fights. You can really see the From Software inspiration in a lot of aspects of PoE 2, but especially in like the Arbiter of Ash, where the longer you've done it and the more you've done it, it becomes like a muscle memory, right? Like I can just do the dodge roll in and out, in and out. It seems jarring at first, but if you take the time to learn it, it's not that bad.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm a big Souls guy. Like I enjoy those games a lot. So like that part of the challenge isn't an issue for me. And I think especially going into 0.5, where Arbiter of Ash isn't the pinnacle of pinnacles in the game anymore, it'll just feel, I guess what I'm curious about is like, is Arbiter of Divinity going to have something like this? Or is it Arbiter of Divinity?
Almost guaranteed.
Right. Because I'm like, if Arbiter of Divinity has this like pinnacle of pinnacle status, but you just wallop him, and then you go to do Arbiter of Ash and you're still dying to the ball phase, I'm like, that's going to feel
worse. It's going to be worse.
Well, now you got to kill him 4 times. So now you're really going to get the practice of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just curious what it's going to end up looking like. I love hard bosses. I love that idea. That's also why I want to start softcore. Like we said, we want to be able to learn these fights before we take it into hardcore. So yeah, it's just food for thought when it comes to that stuff. But
it's a very interesting topic of discussion, and I've talked a lot about this with different people in the hardcore space, in the PoE space in general. And it's people are very divided about the Arbiter of Ash. Some people love it and some people hate it. Like I've talked to DM about it and he says that it's it should be hard, it should be challenging, and he enjoys it. And then many other folks are like, oh, his mechanics are bullshit. I will say that when you get like the fire circles, and he does on the second phase where he does the double dodge perfect timing thing, that feels really bad because you have to take damage at that point. So I would love if they could kind of clean that up and make it so that like you couldn't get overlapping mechanics. Like that ring of fire can spawn in where he does the double dodge thing. And that just sucks. Like there's nothing you can do. You're gonna just die to that like every time, right? So don't get me wrong, there's Arbiter definitely has some jank to it. But I like where they're like the direction of the fight, and I like how you have to really figure out those mechanics.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's probably a big part of it is the jank, and that even in this, at the end of the patch notes, they have a patch note saying that like we fixed a bug where Arbiter of Ash's mechanics would sometimes be invisible if they were spawned too far away from the player. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean that the mechanics could just be invisible in the Pinnacle of Pinnacle fights, right? And it's been a year and a half. But I think if that gets cleaned up, that will feel a lot better. I agree with you. To be Mimi, really like the vision of Arbiter of Ash. The concept is fucking phenomenal, especially as a Souls fan who has probably close to 10,000 hours between all of those games. Like, it is a great fight, but it is jank as shit, and I need them to fix it going into 0.5. So hopefully that happens. With that being said, talking about Pinnacle Bosses, let's defer a little bit to their content specifically. Now we have this like finite area of the Atlas, right? So we have this finite start where everything is really close by. And you got all these storylines. You have multiple, I forget what exactly how they described it, but like basically like log off points where you're like, all right, I'm done. Like multiple points that you're like, I feel satisfied with where I'm stopping for the league. Between that, the search bar, baby, we finally got there. Praise,
thank you, Jonathan.
Praise.
Thank you.
So between those changes, do you feel like, obviously we have to play it still, don't freak out, guys, I know, but do you feel just from this outside perspective that they have solved the Infinite Atlas issues?
There's a lot of things that I really like. I had said previously, if all of that 0.5 is an Atlas search function, I will still play the shit out of it. So I got what I wanted and then so much more. And it's just such a beautiful change, and it's going to just be amazing for QOL. And we don't have agency over just searching or to changing maps to what we want, but now we have the ability to search for the maps that we want and then just jump right to that area, which is I guess a step in the right direction. Not I guess, definitely a step in the right direction. We'll have to wait and see. I think that the Infinite Atlas will still end up being quite a big mess the longer that you play it. And I don't know if that's ever going to change because that's just the nature of the system, right? The more you explore, the bigger it gets, the harder it is to find where the fuck you are and where you need to go. I think the search function will mediate that a little bit. Other than that, I can't really think of anything too much more that I'm worried about with regards to interacting with it. I like how it's divided now into like ocean and sea, so that kind of creates this like nice separation, so you know kind of where you are relative to like how close you are to the ocean and stuff like that. So it gives you a little bit more visual indicators. And yeah, I really am looking forward to more additional things like how they said that you can, go deep into the ocean and then you can see like Oriath like in the area, and that kind of opened up my mind into like what else they could put in, like lore wise, narrative wise, and like really add to the Infinite Atlas in like an interesting way. So I'm excited about it. I've always been a believer in it, and I knew that like with more iteration and with more feedback, they could definitely come to something that's really strong. And I'm excited to see how strong it is in 0.5 for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with the changes that they've made, we should feel like we're in a pretty good spot. My first point is that I can't see a lot of people, except for like the absolute degens like us, like finishing every map in the fortress and every part of all of the league mechanic quest lines, and finishing probably in that time, finishing all the challenges, and still being like, I'm gonna go blast the Infinite Atlas. I think a lot of people are gonna log out. I would say a majority of people at that point.
Dude, I
But
just had a really wild idea. What if they did this? So what if you, after you completed everything, and this has been something that they've had in a ton of different games, but what if they introduced like some sort of like prestige system where like you beat everything in the Atlas, you beat the Arbiter of Divinity, you beat all the quest lines, and your Atlas is just a fucking mess because you're now level 100, but you want to keep playing the game. What if you could just reset the Atlas? It would prestige you, so you'd start you back to, square one or whatever, but then there would be an additional layer of difficulty and reward on top. Let's say it gives you, for just an example, like monster effectiveness increased by 50%, rarity of items increased by 50%, or something like that. Do you think that would be good for the game in terms of like longevity and also like further progression and difficulty, or do you think that would be like bad?
that is a really interesting idea. I think my answer is yes, and the reason for that, so we're talking about Souls inspiration. At all the Souls games, New Game Plus, big
New
thing.
Game Plus,
Keep
exactly.
running
That's what
it.
I was thinking. Yeah.
The thing that I could see a lot of benefits of that. I could also see you do that, right? And then let's say and the pitch that you're giving is that you've cleared everything, tier level 100, all the things that you want to like change your Atlas. I think if it was character based, they would be able to do that. With it being league based, that could be tough. Because you say you re-roll a character, you're going to re-roll your character, and when you get into maps, you're in your new, much tougher Atlas, because that could be scary.
Totally. I think it would have to be character based for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, if what if you do that and then you start progressing in it, and you're like, holy shit, this is really hard. I don't like this. Are you stuck? Can you go back to your old Atlas? Or is your character brick now? You know what I mean? So on a conceptual standpoint, I love that idea, and I think that would be something to like kind of just like tinker with and see if it is something that could be possible.
Yeah, it's just a super half-baked idea that I thought about when we
yeah.
were talking about sort of like completion and also sort of like you know, aspirational content. I think that that's something that we'll probably still find ourselves desiring in zero point 0.5, because at the end of the day, it's going to get solved and then people are going to trivialize the game. And so I think that this would just sort of like accentuate the replayability maybe, but it's probably just a half cooked and bad idea. But I don't know, I thought it was funny.
No, I think it's a very funny idea. And to be clear, for everybody watching, we are not pitching this as a serious idea. Do not freak out in the comments. It's okay, I promise. But if you are going to freak out in the comments, thank you for the engagement. So
that's all this was engagement baiting the whole time.
Exactly. The thing is, you know, you could do that from an SSF perspective. It would be weird with trade potentially. Like, what is the meta? Like, how do you do all these things? Like we said, half baked. But
it could even be something that's only available in like standard league. So like you could only do it in standard. Yeah, if you're a standard Andy and you don't like want to play the league, but you want to keep playing for whatever reason, like just fucking New Game Plus. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be good for players to have the option, because they had it in 0.1 when you could like completely fucking brick your Atlas, where you could do like, very rarely certain players would be able to do like / reset Atlas, and it would like give them a fresh thing because they had bricked all their stuff. Maybe not like
Yes.
scaling difficulty, but like being able to reset your atlas if you really wanted to. But I was thinking about like how we said we could do tied to like characters and stuff. I think that would be a server load issue. I think that they wouldn't be able to do it on that part. Um,
I
but
think my mind was just
it's
at
cool.
like, how can we reset the Atlas? Because I think the Atlas still feels great when you start doing it, and then the experience will probably get worse over time just due to how much of it there is. And so I was thinking like, damn, it'd be fun like once you've done everything to just like clean slate it. Because I love when you get to maps and it's just a unexplored like new world to figure out. Like it's such a good feeling. I love the feeling of just being dropped into the end game and being like, there's so many like, which way do I go? What's over here? What's over there? But that is lost. Not quickly, but over time as you play more, which is the point of exploration. But in losing that, you also gain this like kind of mess, this just mess of stuff. Um, and so yeah, I was like, how do we get rid of this mess?
Yeah, that's a good point. And but I think kind of rounding back to I think where I was going before we tangented it off, which to be clear, I'm not complaining. That was great. I think that GGG, their response would be, we don't care. And I think that the reason why it would be that way is because like they are making the Infinite Atlas experience better. My cat is trying to attack me. They're making the Infinite Atlas experience better, but they also have said they don't really care that much about people just like continuing to play the game. They want to make sure people are coming back. So I think if there's enough content juiced, my cat just jumped on the desk. Oh gosh. All right, say hello everybody. If there's enough content, right, where it's juiced out of its mind and people can do all the stuff and they finish all those quest lines and then they can log out, does GGG care that much about the Infinite Atlas experience too far past that? They know people are going to be juicing and blasting. Like there's definitely going to be those players. But I don't know how much more attention they would want to put into it. What do you think?
It's an interesting topic. I think it feels really good on the first character to do all that completionist stuff, but you know what feels weird is when you've like made another character and get to maps, especially like, after completing a lot of stuff in the endgame Infinite Atlas, and then you kind of have to just jump into the same Atlas. So I would just love it maybe, as a sort of meeting in the middle if there was just more of like an easier way to experience that fresh reset. If you wanted to, like if it's obviously what would be an opt-in thing, right? And I don't know if there is a way to do that. Like, does that slash reset Atlas thing work still or not?
I don't think so because it was in place for when like you would die, it would brick a node and you couldn't progress through
Okay.
it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so like there were people who literally bricked their atlas and they could not progress in any direction.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that there's so many weird like hinge cases where they'd be like, oh, well, what if people just do all the delirium maps right there to get all the delirium rewards and then they reset their atlas and they just keep farming the delirium rewards over and over again, and then like there's like this meta of resetting your atlas. Like players are going to find ways to manipulate it. But I
I guess the way
do.
I was looking at it was more like when you get to the end game on a new character, maybe Doriani is like, do you want to like continue this timeline or start a new timeline? So you'd have to like make a new character and get to the Atlas. You wouldn't be able to
Mhm.
just like farm and then reset and farm and reset. Yeah, there would definitely need to be some like definite testing
Yeah,
regarding this for sure.
yeah, but it is a cool idea and I like that idea because that's why we fresh start and that's why we have like these private leagues and stuff, right? Because at a certain point we're like, I want that fresh
It's
experience
fun.
again.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the whole point. But again, I'm curious what they would think about it, but that's an interesting thought exercise. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
um
Thank you for entertaining
so
my cooked ideas.
absolutely, I'm the king of cooked ideas, so don't you even worry about that. um well, with that, let me think how I want to keep going with this. Oh, we've covered the end game. trying to think of other things that we haven't covered yet. Ooh. First of all, I guess I should ask, how are we feeling on time? We're 90 minutes deep.
I'm
I
doing great,
know.
man. As long as you want to go, we can go for it. Having a
Yeah,
blast.
perfect. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm having a great time. We'll keep going for a little bit more. I have a couple more things here on the little document that we can yap about. One thing that I am curious to pick your brain on, and I asked Rabbit this question, and I've probably heard this question asked before, but right now going into 0.5, knowing what we have, if you were able to affect anything, add, change, or remove, you get one wish from 0.5, not a class, cannot do classes. What would you be doing? What would you think?
This might be a hot take, and I know that you can already do this if you pay money for it. And I've wanted this in the game for a very long time, and I hate that you have to pay for it. Is transmog? I think there's so many beautiful items in this game that are just stunning, like the unique item artwork that never gets fucking used because and this might be solved with the runes of Aldur being able to upgrade more unique items. You can use them for longer. But at the end of the day, we're not looking at any of these like items half the time or more because they just sit in your stash and collecting dust in the unique tab and stuff like that. So I would love it if they implemented something like the wardrobe system they have in Diablo 4, where you, as soon as you find an item and salvage it or unlock it somehow, you can like deck out your character and make your character look dope with all of the in-game shit. Because I'm just such a fan of the way that they've designed these items. I feel like it's a shame that my character always has to look the same with like a sleek jacket on and like a Kamasan tiara, like the classic like EV hybrid gear, and like kind of just looks bland, dude. So yeah, I would love a wardrobe system. Please, GGG, give it to us and not make us pay money for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a really good addition. And I know that they were like talking about something to do with that. What I'm curious on is because because the artwork is so good and all these things are so good. I wonder how much that would cut into literally their profit margin of people wanting to pay for microtransactions to make their characters look better. Um, I don't know, just from that weird business like perspective, but purely from a player perspective, it's just a net win. Like it would just, there are some uniques, even some base armors that I'm like, damn, that looks good.
Yes, dude. Like
So
Perfidy, like the armor from Simulacrum that you can get looks so dope. It makes me want to play Armor Evasion just so I can use that armor, because it looks amazing. And yeah, I know what you mean. It could definitely impact their profits. If we look at Diablo 4, people are still paying a ton of money for additional MTX. I have no doubt in my mind we're going to see like the Kirax Battle Pass as well implemented in PoE 2 in some shape or form. So I don't know. I just feel like it's more so not about like the money loss, but more so about like getting more of a return on investment for all the money they have spent already on the art, right? Like they've spent so much money and time to make these beautiful pieces of gear that no one ever uses or looks at or like appreciates because they just aren't good.
yeah, that is a good point. That is a good point. Yeah, because I think it would be, it would be a net win in a lot of ways when it comes to that. And I've even seen other companies do something kind of middle ground. Destiny 2, rest in peace, had a similar thing when they kind of introduced Transmog, where every league or season you would get a certain amount of like the Transmog currency for different things, and then you could pay for more if you wanted to. So like they kind of gave you the taste of it, and it was enough. It was like 4 full armor sets per season that you would be able to like do if you wanted to. But some people really did not like that, because of course people are going to find a way to be mad. But that is a really good point you made about Diablo 4. Like I said all of that, but I have bought multiple armor sets for the like 3 months that I played Diablo 4. So I mean, I guess I would be proof that it does work. That is
Yeah.
interesting. Cool.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to see that for 1.0. Please, GGG, if you see that, give it to us. We love your
Yeah.
art.
Yes. And div cards. Give me div cards.
For sure. 100%.
Yeah, dude. Oof. I don't know. I was thinking about before I was tied up between I think on the podcast with Rabbit I was talking about masteries for the tree, and I still feel strongly about masteries, but I know we need to wait a little bit. And
What do you think about cluster jewels for PoE 2?
I am not opposed to cluster jewels at all. I think that would be great, and I don't think that GGG is opposed to it either, because voices, hello, like we saw with the when the passive tree stuff came out, like there was, when I opened it, I don't know if it was for everybody, but when I looked at it, there was like in the middle of the tree there was like 5 jewel sockets for voices instead of like the 4 that they showed off. Can you get a 5 socket voices? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So but like to me, like that is basically a cluster jewel, right? Because the amount of power that you can get from a well-rolled, let's say delirium crafted 4 mod jewel, is pretty close to what you would get from a like cluster jewel of small passives in PoE 1. The only thing you're missing from that is the notables. So I'm curious what kind of crazy stuff we can get in there, because it could be pretty close to feeling like cluster jewels.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the addition of these new delirium liquid emotions that are coming from specifically like the revised mechanic, giving us new notables now that aren't even on the tree, is kind of a step in that direction. I kind of forgot about that, which is also really cool. Like the one where you can like ancestrally boost or empower fire spells. Like someone's gonna cook some crazy shit with that 100%. So yeah, we might even be like on our way there already.
Yeah, it's so hard because there's so much content that we're like, oh, this would be so perfect for the game, and somebody's like, yeah, that's why they put it in there. Did you not see in the thing? Like, and we're like, oh, I only watched that 9 times and I just forgot.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's so weird. But like stuff like voices, like I'm sure that it's not going to be a divable thing. Like you're going to have to farm like crazy for it, and I'm sure like the 5 socket one is like 0.1% drop rate or something crazy.
Yeah.
So it definitely, there will be huge chase items for sure. Um, I was gonna say before we got the patch notes, I was gonna say res swap, but holy shit, we got res swaps in the game, boys. We got res swaps before GTA 6. It's so good. So I don't even know. I think just more power on the passive tree is what I would want, whether that be masteries or whether that just be like the reworks, which we're probably going to see here in 3 months with our first economy reset.
We got some serious defensive power in the Merc side of the tree as of, I believe it was yesterday when the passive tree changes came out. Like, oh my God. Like, I know that we're not like all the way there with the passive tree and it needs quite a bit of adjusting overall. And I'm sure this is like the most copium fueled sentence ever, but I'm sure when more classes come out, they'll have like a full, um, you know, I guess, refresher of it maybe. But what we got in the new update, it seemed like they were really moving in an interesting direction. A lot of the changes that came in 0.5 or are coming are trying to shake up the defensive meta, especially with regards to energy shield and now crit as well getting nerfed in the monk side of the tree. And so I think they're actively like aware of the some balancing and some shifts. I know you said that we didn't get a lot of it, and they were kind of like, yeah, we were busy making all this damn content. We didn't have time to do all this damn balancing you guys want too. But from what I saw, like armor and evasion is looking real good now, based on the new passive tree changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, the defensive meta is looking a lot better. Armor ES still needs a lot of work, but I think that is going to come with like these passive tree reworks. Oh, I think the thing that I would love to see, and I know that they said that we are going to see that too, hopefully mid-league. Can we get some more skills for the existing weapons that we have? The fact that the only, like, if I wanted to play a fire bow build, what is your option?
I know what you mean, dude. It's weird that we don't have like a fire arrow spell. Like
You have
that just seems like such a classic RPG thing,
you
right?
have detonating arrow at level 31 or
Mhm.
35 or something like that. I'm like, but that's specifically to detonate other things. There is literally no like explosive arrow. There's no like, we're missing a lot of cool archetypes. And I know I'm talking a lot of bows, guys. I'm so sorry. I played 1,000 hours of bows out of 2,000. Like, it's just my thing. But even on the other classes, like I played maces properly for the first time this league. Uh, like some of the skills were really cool, but I'm like, damn, there's not much like here. It really feels bare bones in a lot of ways. So I just want to see more skills for the existing stuff.
Yeah, we need ice grenades. I think ice is like my favorite. I know, sorry, grenades again, but I think ice is like my favorite elemental damage type. It's just so satisfying, like popping those enemies and watching like them burst into fragments. And yeah, no, I totally agree with you, man. I'm excited to see what they add in to each individual class because you're totally right. There's room to play with a lot of different elemental damage types and new skills. So yeah, I'm excited to see those when they come in.
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped. I'm and we're gonna get so much with these like whatever these event leagues are gonna be. Now it sounded less like event leagues and more like just full on economy resets. With they said some new content, but not a full league. I have no idea what to expect, and honestly, that's kind of a really cool feeling. But I am curious. Do you think that like they're going to keep like 0.5 league going, and then we're gonna have like the like a secondary league for this, or if it is going to be like economy reset for everybody 3 months deep or whatever it's going to be? What do you think?
I would prefer for everybody because then it actually gives everybody like a incentive to play. Whereas like if you segregate the community into like an optional economy reset, it's basically just like a private league, right? Where like you're gonna get a good chunk of the player base that goes in there and plays, but other people are gonna be like, why would I spend more time playing when I have all this shit in my stash in the main league and I can keep building my characters and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be more beneficial. You've seen how much hype is around a new economy reset, a new league launch, especially if they introduce like balance adjustments. Maybe they give us some new ascendancies or a new like a I don't want to say class because I feel like we probably won't see a class until 1.0, but or like a Freesia thing where they do like a complete remix of some new ascendancies or a gauntlet. Like a gauntlet would be so good, dude. That would be one that I would say which should be a wonderful like optional economy reset because I tried my first gauntlet in POE one and it was hard as fuck, but it was very very fun and fun to watch too.
Yeah, big gauntlet enjoyers, boys. Big gauntlet enjoyers here. Um, I would love, I would love to see some like if they're gonna do that. I said it on the last podcast. I won't beat that dead horse. Give me private league modifiers. Just like
Yes.
let me fuck around on private leagues so we can make our own challenging fun. Um,
Yeah, and
but
that could lead to a gauntlet too. Like if they actually gave us access to that, like that would be probably enough for Ziz to put together the event. It's just that we don't have the control unless GGG actually makes it like specifically for that. But dude, how fun would that be? I listened to you talk about that with I think Rabbit, was it? And I think it's such a good idea, dude. I would love to see them do it.
dude, I'm ready for Media's gauntlet where you got no vendors. You can only ground loot, boys. Ground loot matters. Make ground loot good again. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see where there they go with it. I personally, I hope because they said like 2/3 of the changes they'll be making are like balance related things. Even though I personally would prefer to get content and like let's get there and then we'll worry about balancing stuff. I do understand having to go into 1.0 with like what we have already making sense. So I'm really excited to see what significant balance stuff can take place for that economy reset. Because it will feel, even if they, I know they said they're going to do some new content, even if they don't, even if it is the exact same and it is just restart button, but here's passive tree reworks and class like balance reworks and skill reworks, I'm in. I'm so in, and I will play it as hard as I would play a fresh league start.
100%, dude. Yeah. I think that, at the end of the day, if Fate of the Val felt long, um, 0.5 is going to feel extremely long in regards to the build up for 0.1. But they're aware of that. They're saying already there's going to be if not multiple economy resets, and so I'm really excited that they've not only provided us with like a shit ton more to do, but they're also like going to be actively balancing the game more now, and then I guess in the background adding in like the final acts and another class and stuff like that. Maybe two classes. What do you think like the final product of 1.0 looks like in terms of like the classes? Like, do you think it's going to be like Templar? Do you think it's going to be Duelist? Do you think it's going to be a mixture of multiple classes? Do you think it's going to be all of them? What do you think about it all?
Chat, look at this guy being a crazy good host, taking my questions right out my mouth. What a guy.
Wait, you had that one?
I didn't have it on my sheet, but that was the next thing that I was going to ask you, is like state of 1.0. So it's fine. We can share the brain cell, dude. It's good.
Hell yeah.
So what I think, there are so many different lenses that I can look at it from. If I'm looking at like a lore lens, right, I'm like, there ain't no way they drop Act 5 and Act 6 without Templar. No way they drop Oriath without a Templar. But also, like, flails? What the fuck is that gonna look like? Like, that's not in PoE 1 at all. So we're talking a whole new archetype that they have to build around. So, like, on a development standpoint, they said they can't. It would be a shame. They never said they can't, chat. Keep that in mind. In November, when we're at ExileCon and they're like 0.1 but no swords, they said it would be a shame to launch without swords, not that they wouldn't. I hope and pray that they launch with Duelist and swords. I think we need Duelist and swords. I think we need Marauder. I think that side of the tree still needs a lot of work. I right now think that the right side of the tree, while I still think it could use some work, could launch like that. Maybe some additional like spell kind of nodes for like Arcane Archer when it's coming out or whatever. And obviously we're going to get a lot of stuff with the Assassin or Rogue or whatever it's going to be called. But I think that those like swords and axes, that big archetype, if I was GGG, that would be the two things that I'm trying to land. If we're landing in 1.0. I don't know, dude. I don't know if we're going to get, I hope we get two classes. I don't know that we are going to.
I think that the next two classes have to be melee for exactly that reason. I think that there's been such an outcry for additional melee play styles and skills, which is totally valid. Like, I'm one of those people that like, I love playing melee, but I've kind of exhausted like I think the martial artist is probably going to be the way that sort of reinvigorates that with 0.5. But dude, I think that, yeah, especially after sort of the little fiasco that I thought was pretty curious, that they like teased the sword in the trailer, but didn't like expect people to be like, there's a sword, swords are coming. Like, I don't know. I found it a little hard to believe that they didn't expect that to be the reaction. Like, but anyway, so not pointing any fingers or anything like that, but I think that might also very much so educate their decision to put swords into the game for 1.0 as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. If they didn't think they were going to need to do it before, they surely do now. Because let me tell you, that's a great point, actually. If they are going to make divine orbs more common because the temple was juiced to hell, there's no way they experience what they experienced with the swords fiasco and then go into 1.0 without swords. I think that they've learned their lesson with that, and we can see that they will damage control the shit out of that one. But it would be really funny if they go in and they're like, whales. Just saying, that's what we're getting, and
it would be Diablo Immortal all over again.
it would be
like, what?
bad.
You guys
Because
don't like playing the Templar?
what, you guys don't want long neck, dude? But the crazy thing too is like, if they launched with flails is more ranged melee. So we have ranged melee with quarterstaff, we have ranged melee with huntress and the spear, and then we would have flails, and people would be like, can I just hit something? Like a stick.
Yeah.
Can I actually use a sword?
Yeah, for sure.
That would be crazy. Yeah, I think that we'll get swords for sure. I think that if swords come, axes are pretty similar between swords and maces. Like there's probably, they have to do new skills and new animations, but I'm sure there's some asset overlap there that can help them out a bit.
Yeah, I hope that with the addition of new melee weapons, one thing, and I know this might be a hot take as well, is that I hope they loosen up the restrictions on some of the martial weapon skills. I like how some of them maintain like core identity. Like I really like how Hammer of the Gods is like a mace skill, for instance, right? Or like Seismic Slam. But like, let us Bone Shatter with a fucking quarterstaff. Let us like Falling Thunder with a mace. Like I think that would create um, not too much of a direction in PoE ones, sort of open-ended skill usage, but just a bit more interesting build combinations. Because right now, and this is something that I felt since like the beginning of the game, it just feels very, as you experienced, very limited. You play maces, you have only these specific pieces to work with, and maybe those restrictions need to be loosened up a little bit more.
Yeah, and hopefully the Calgren skills and supports will help with that. With that feeling, most of them, even the actual like skills did feel like support skills from what they showed off. It didn't seem like these are your actual like skill, like your main skill that you're using. Sure, I'm sure plenty of people are going into 0.5 going, I'm doing a ward build, I don't care, I'm gonna figure it out. And they will one shot Arbor of Divinity with their ward skill. But I hope that they continue to do stuff like that and blur the lines, because that's what PoE's identity is at the end of the day, is being able to do whatever. But they showed Gemling, like the main showcase for Gemling's skill is like, check out the additional quality shit you can do with Gemling Fireball. And I'm like, okay, no motherfucker is ever doing Gemling Caster on League Start. If you are, that's a bad idea. And you should rethink it, because you can scale projectile damage, but there's no nodes for you to take down there that's going to really help you out with that. So I don't know. I thought it was really peculiar that that's what they chose to share.
It's funny because they have this sort of identity-based skill system when it comes to martial weapons, but I'm glad you brought up spells. Like when you put on a wand or you put on a staff, there's not really anything stopping you from using elemental skills or occultist skills or like elemental skills. Like you can use any of them at your will as soon as you put on like a spellcaster weapon. And so it's interesting, like those weapons don't have any identity really. It's just like whatever has the highest gem level and spell damage rolls and whatever. And then you can just use, if you wanted to use Volcano or whatever you wanted to, you can. But when it comes to martial weapons, it just feels like you're just really locked into whatever skills I have available to you. Like, imagine if you could use like snipe with like a crossbow or something like that. Like, what does that look like, right? Like, I don't know. I'm curious if they're going to do that or not, because it could be interesting. Could be fun.
Yeah, I guess they do have a little bit of crossover stuff. Like Mirage Archer can use crossbows. I just learned that ice tipped because with the Twister stuff, that ice tipped arrows can be used on a spear. Like
Barrage too. Yep.
And Barrage, like that stuff, super cool. that makes
Yeah,
sense for those
for
things to
sure.
cross over, because they're kind of those like supporting skills. But
Mhm.
yeah, I agree with you. Why can't I? If I can snipe with a bow, why can't I snipe with a literal compound bow, which is what a crossbow is? Like that seems a little strange. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's a really good point. Um, I want more of that. GGG, give us more of that. Whatever that is, more of it, please.
And I wonder if this will be a non-issue when we have like the entire skill arsenal available to us. Because right now, I think that it's this particular take is definitely fueled by the lack of like pieces that we have to play with. But once all those pieces are there, I might not give a shit because there's going to be enough options with every weapon. So we're gonna have to see in the future how it progresses that way.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be cool. I'm hoping we get all those skills and all those archetypes, and everything will feel so much better, like you're saying. My curious thing is, I hope that with the balance stuff that they're doing when it comes to those mid-league changes, that we're gonna feel a lot better about ascendancy to ascendancy and skill to skill. Because right now, like when we were doing the showcase, right, and they were showing off like martial artist and spirit walker, we were all like, why would anyone ever choose invoker over martial artist, right? Or why would like some of these other ascendancies feel bad in comparison? And you do have to have those generic one or more generic ones. Like I do agree that every class should have one that's more like, I am the one that can do anything kind of well. Um, but I hope that they work on that to give those a bit more identity and make them not feel as like way out of line with each other, because it's like that with skills too. Right now there are not very many main skills to be using for a lot of archetypes. But I'll keep using my favorite example because you experienced a decent amount the trying out a bunch of different characters. But like bows, you have lightning arrow, lightning rod, and poison, and then your other ones that you get are like escape shot. Okay, well that's not a main skill. Ice tipped arrows. Okay,
What? You're
well,
not using escape shot to clear entire screens? What do you
hey man,
mean,
listen,
dude? What do you mean?
in theory it would be really cool, but I don't know. It's just weird that like if I think about a build like that, I'm like, okay, I can play lightning arrow, poison, or ice shot. Those are realistically your three main bow skills, right?
Yeah, there's Spiral Volley in there too. I've never messed around with it, but I've seen some nasty builds with Spiral Volley. It's something I actually wanted to try as a Spirit Walker League starter, but I just didn't really want to play bows at the beginning. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The way that I look at it is kind of the same way that the Endgame rework. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one of these economy resets they do is like the Ascendancy rework and balance patch, where like they just, you know, look at how much better Abyss is and like fundamentally Val Temple, not like in practice, I guess, with zero point 0.4, but the actual mechanic in the league itself, the how fleshed out they feel, they're continually like raising the bar as they like continue to learn and improve. And that left like mechanics like Delirium and Expedition in the dust, dude, compared to like how good Abyss was. And so I definitely can see them going back now and like repolishing everything and giving stuff a makeover, even though they kind of give each ascendancy a makeover every league. Like Pathfinder got that crazy glow up in zero point 0.4, right? But I would expect like, there might be a very good chance that there's going to be a full patch or something dedicated to just like completely updating everything to make it feel better.
That would be like Christmas to me. I honestly would take that over a new league mechanic any day of the week. But I feel like that's what we were saying going into 0.5 as well. We are like, just give us the end game rework. It's fine. We don't need a new league mechanic. I appreciate that we got one. And they
Yeah.
were very smart tying it into another league mechanic rework. But yeah, dude, I just want more fun. I just want more fun toys to play with. I just want more toys, So just, let's do it.
Yeah, like look at PoE1 with the bloodline ascendancies that came into the game, where it just offered you a completely different third ascendancy choice. And even that is just, it adds so much more build diversity and ways to play your character and build your character. And so there are all of these things that already exist in PoE1, and it's just a matter of time until these ideas come into PoE2 for sure.
Yeah, dude. Man, I'm topicked out, dude. We're just over 2 hours. But I'm down to keep yapping, but I don't have anything else prepared. Do you have anything else that's kind of come to mind that you would want to throw out there before we kind of wind down here?
No, I think as we close that, man, I just want to say like thank you so much. It's been an absolute like pleasure to be on the pod with you. And yeah, I just want to say I'm super stoked for you. And I wish you all the success with the podcast. I know it's hard to like commit to starting something and consistently doing it. And so yeah, I just want to say like congrats, man, on the new content and the new podcast. And I'm really stoked for you. So yeah, thank you so much, dude. It's been awesome.
Absolutely, dude. I want to say the same to you. Thank you for first of all coming on here and being willing to yap with me for this long. But also, like, for those who don't know, like, Blaze has been in the background since start of 0.3, really pushing me and encouraging me to give this thing a shot, and has been very, very kind and giving tips, and genuinely wants everyone around him to succeed, and will do what he can to support in that way. So thank you, man, for being an inspiration to the community, and just a great place to hang out. Normally toxicity free. Okay, chat. Just as long as you don't shit on grenades too much. Normally it's safe. But yeah, dude, you've been really great, and I appreciate it. Appreciate it a ton.
Hey man, yeah, it's my pleasure. I love seeing people kind of chase what they want to do, right? It's all for me, it's always about like, trying to do as much that we can with the passions that we have. And so yeah, I can see obviously you've been very passionate about PoE just like me and everybody else. So it's cool to see you take that passion and run with it. I'm excited to see what you cook up for 0.5, bud.
Hell yeah, dude. And I'm excited to see what you're gonna cook up as well. With that, we will wind down. So if you can tell everybody where the chef Blaze will be cooking up some content, talk to us about where to find you and what you're kind of looking like for 0.5.
Yep. So it's just BlazeWorks TV on Twitch and YouTube. I'll be playing the Tactician Grenades League Starter. So if you want to come by, check that out and see how it's going over on my end, it's going to be all SSF, and there will be quite a bit of SSF content coming out from me with regards to all things Endgame and 0.5.
Hell yeah, dude. Everybody make sure you go check Blaze out. He's got some build guides up. He's going to be streaming like crazy. We're super, super excited about the league start. For anyone who doesn't know, I will be also jamming out for league start. We're all going to be blasting like crazy, getting some content out. I'm not as much of a build guy kind of guy. Much more topical, but we got a lot of cool yapping sessions coming up on the schedules. We have people that are awesome like Blaze. We got Talkative Try coming up. Kaltarak agreed that he's going to be on the pod sometime soon, so that's also super exciting. Read More Book is going to be on. All the homies. So really, really excited to see where this is going. And I hope that you guys will keep listening to me yap about shit that I like. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And we will yap with you next time. Have a great rest of your day, night, evening, wherever you're at. See you next time.